Imagine that you are a divorced, single parent, struggling to make ends meet despite working a full-time job. You are in a place where you don't have any family and limited social supports. You're feeling the pressure of taking care of your child, paying your rent, paying for and maintaining your vehicle. You're feeling overwhelmed with all the responsibilities. You feel alone. It's like the walls are closing in. It's as if there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Every time you think you're moving forward, something happens to set you back. You get a raise at work, and then your rent goes up. You think you have an opportunity to save some money, and your tire blows out. The weight of it all is so much that you just want it to go away. Your worst days are filled with irritation, frustration, and anger. That was me at 25 years old. I was living in a dark place, and I could not figure out what was going wrong in my life. I had no positive ways to deal with the circumstances that were going on in my life and affecting my situation. I could not comprehend how my emotions were affecting me mentally and physically. Emotions affect brain function in that they contribute to the responses to demands and opportunities, as well as they affect bodily functions and mental processes. The workings of the brain, or the core affect, are the mental responses to positive and negative stimuli. When intense, negative core affect can result in detrimental consequences, such as chronic physical health conditions, harmful coping mechanisms, immune deficiencies, depression, anxiety, and higher rates of mortality. I had aches every week, whether it was a headache, a backache, a stomach ache. I also developed ailments in other parts of my body, like joint pain. I smoked cigarettes and drank alcohol daily. This is how I dealt with my problems. Positive core affect increases emotional well-being, especially during life transitions and periods of high stress. The negative things, though, are more harmful in that the negativity infiltrates all areas of your life. I was unhappy at work. I was unhappy at home. There weren't any places where I could find joy. The psychological, physiological, and behavioral responses were in correlation with my core affect. This core affect is connected to several other brain functions. Emotions influence health by informing about wellness, behaviors, attitudes, and decisions. When stress reaches a certain level, the executive functioning of the brain transitions to the primitive functioning of the brain. And when that happens over a long period of time, the brain begins to shrink and not function as well. When this occurs, thoughts become irrational, thinking becomes clouded, and decision-making ability diminishes. It was like I was operating in a fog most days. I thought I was making good, logical decisions for my life, but I wasn't. I wasn't because I couldn't due to my diminished brain functioning. Stress is a prevalent factor in all mental and physical processes and triggers the body's fight or flight response. As the body experiences extreme stress, emotions elevate out of control, resulting in the body being in a constant state of fight or flight. This heightened level of stress accelerates the generation of the cortisol hormone. This is what was happening to me. Cortisol helps regulate blood pressure, cardiovascular functioning, and aiding the body to efficiently metabolize carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Regulated and optimal levels of cortisol assist the body in maintaining balance. Elevated cortisol levels for an extended period of time can cause weight gain, especially around the waist and hips. and also result in suppression of the immune system, decreasing of sexual drive and functioning, as well as increasing blood pressure and sugar levels. During that time, I was obese, I was borderline diabetic, and I was ill all the time. I always maxed out my sick days at work and eventually started using some of my vacation days as well. My high cortisol levels were affecting my emotional responses, causing dysregulation due to my low brain functioning. Low brain functioning affects perception. Perception is correlated with beliefs and supposed locus of control. Faulty perception may lead to automatically thinking the worst, which is driven by pessimism. Pessimism is common in emotional dysregulation. I had pessimistic perception. This meant that I believed that things were always happening to me and the world was working against me. I did not consider what I was doing to affect my life. I believed that problems and situations were worse than what they actually were. I believed life events were controlled by others. I had not really considered what I could do for myself. Emotions are critical factors of current and future behavior. Thus, the negative perceptions resulted in abnormal behaviors such as overreacting, being overly irritated and frustrated, and unfavorable treatment of others. Emotions are invoked sometimes subconsciously. There were days I would wake up and I was instantly irritated, frustrated, and angry. I hadn't done anything. I had simply opened my eyes. Hadn't even got out of bed yet. On the other hand, there were days in which I was exhausted because my body was in such a state of distress that I could not sleep. Healthy perception leads to logical, rational, and quality decision-making and uses emotion as a collaborative part of making choices. Good decision-making includes considering the emotional part of the outcome. Poor decision-making does not consider emotional outcomes prior to deciding. There is a chasm that is created by the conflict of emotion and considering alternatives for rational decision-making. I made decisions based on what I felt like. If I felt like doing it, it got done. If I didn't feel like it, it didn't matter how important it was. I didn't do it, it didn't get done, and I didn't care. There was not any forethought as to what the consequences of my decisions would be. Reconciling this division can be achieved by pursuit of good emotional well-being. My emotions were dictating my actions. Effective management of emotional health and well-being allows for higher brain functioning, minimizing the effects of fight or flight. More often than not, I was bothered by everyone and everything, including my child. Although I felt bad, I could not control my attitude or my behaviors. Things get out of control, mentally and physically. Why? Because emotions lie to us, create lapses in judgment, cause faulty decision-making, and impede healthy bodily functioning, and adversely affect behavior and relationships. Stress and emotional dysregulation can lead to a vicious cycle that needs to be consciously broken if happiness, contentment, and emotional balance are to be achieved. So I had to do something. I had to figure out what was going to happen in my life. I could keep going down the road I was going, or I could try and do something different, hoping for a different result. So I had to do some things. I had to take a hard look at my situation. Really look at where I was and make an honest assessment of my life up to that point, looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly. I had to compare where I was to where I wanted to be. I needed to identify what steps I needed to implement. I connected with a professional who would be honest with me and hold me accountable. I needed to be more present and intentional in my parenting. I had to select and reach out to safe people in my family and circle of friends. I emphasize the word safe because not everyone is in a position to hold your emotions and your deep, dark secrets in the way that you would like them to. I had to choose to get uncomfortable with my status quo with the hopes of a better future. Now, I would like you to imagine that you are living what you have determined to be the good life. You are mentally and physically healthy. You are educated at the level you want to be. You have obtained a good job and are making a name for yourself. You are growing in your career field. You are partnered or married and have a thriving relationship. You live in a nice house in a desirable neighborhood. You have supportive friends and a great family. You have children you adore who attend good schools. All in all, your life is exactly as you wanted it to be, and you are happy. Thank you.